Hi, my name is Ardell Fauché Hamilton, and I'm going to talk about differentiation using digital tools. I am a teacher at Jackson Technology Center, and so we're going to get started about right now. I'm going to share my screen with you so you can see what I have going on. And I kind of put a presentation together, but I made it so that I could follow it more so than you could. It's called Differentiation Strategies using digital tools. The first strategy I talk about is not really digital at all, but it has a digital component to it. It's menus. And if you've ever done a menu, they are amazing for all your kiddos. Whenever I think about differentiation, because I work at Jackson Technology, we have high and low kids. So when I think about differentiation, I think about all the kids that are affected by the education that they're getting from me. So I don't just make my differentiation cater to the kids that are low. You also need to differentiate for your GT kids, for your MST kids, for your on-level kids, for your honors kids, because they all learn differently, and menus is a great way to do that. The thing about menus is that they give kiddos the choice and voice. We use menus a lot to introduce a unit or for a lesson within a unit, and we use them when we're working with vocabulary. Some of the menu examples that we've used in the past have been, we used this one for just recently for our Earth 1 vocabulary. The kiddos had to pick whatever they wanted to do, and it had to add up to 20 points. A lot of their creative output is done through the Google Classroom because we assign them a Google Classroom address, and everything they do is loaded up through the Google Classroom. So we literally, with our MST kiddos, which are our higher kiddos, which this menu is created for, you can see it right here that it says MST. Everything they do, they either take a picture, create a video or something and load it up into their classroom. Some of the choices that they get is that they can create flashcards of the vocabulary words and use Quizlet or something. They have to use a digital tool to create those flashcards. They can create a comic strip. They can write a song. They can create a keynote or a PowerPoint. They can write questions and then answers that we might use later on a test or a quiz that we give. They can be creative and write a letter. It gives them a choice and it hits their different learning styles. That's the most important thing to us. The menu, that particular menu was for high level students, but they had to choose up to 20 points. We like the menus a lot because it hits all types of learning, because the students can write, they can draw, they can illustrate, they can create, they can graphically organize, which a lot of our kids think that way. They can utilize technology or they can create hands-on products. So it hits a variety of the things that they do well. And I've never had a kid not want to do a menu. It's the learning modalities for different learning styles. They're linguistic, logical, mathematic, and scientific, spatial, kinesthetic, musical, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalist. It hits every kind of learning style. So when you're talking about differentiation, this is probably one of the best ways that we differentiate. We just add the technology component to it that makes it a digital thing for our kiddos, because even I'm going to show you in a second another menu that we've done with our on-level kids. And even with that menu, they still have to utilize technology. And that's this one. This is from our space, which was our first unit. Of course, I'm a science teacher, so everything's about the science. This one is also a vocabulary menu, but not all of our menus are vocabulary menus. In this menu, you notice that the kiddos have to complete less points. It's 15 points here. This menu is for all our students, and we actually put the Google addresses that we like, the addresses that we like them to go to create certain things. Like this one right here, they create a Frere model. We already have that model loaded into Google, and they just have to go and create it. They can create a comic strip, which a lot of our kids like to do, and I'll show you the outcome of that in a little bit. They can also create with the Google Slides. They can do the vocabulary to write complete sentences or make flashcards on Quizlet. This one is very popular. The kids like poetry, so we allow them to make an acoustic poem. The crossword puzzle, there's actually a website that we put a link to that is already in their about section in their classroom. So this one, the Make the Crossword Puzzle, is really great because the kids like to be creative like that. This one even says cut pictures out of old magazines. It gives those kids such a variety of choices that there's something that they can do and do well. And they just decide how many points and how much time they're willing to spend. You notice at the bottom of this menu, we always put the vocabulary words so they don't have to go searching for that, or sometimes we just load them up into their classroom. The menu is really for all students, and the digital component to it requires fewer points. All menus are assigned through our Google Classroom, and most of the activities that we do are turned in through the Google Classroom. These are some menu samples that we've actually used. This first one right here is over lunar cycles, and we made it like a dinner menu where they have to, it's hard to see because I had to make it small to fit into the space. Well, they actually had to choose an appetizer. Sorry, I'm still at school.
Teachers, just a reminder that there is a wedding shower taking place in the library. We'd love for you to join us. We'll see you there. Bye.
Okay, so they had to choose an appetizer, which was a set of activities that were probably what we would call engage activities. Then they had to choose an entree and then a dessert. So that kind of menu the kids love also because it reminds them of restaurants. This one right here is a chemistry menu where they click in the point value. This one's definitely 100% electronic. And then we have like the restaurant menu. We just try to keep it different for the kids so that they can get excited about their learning. This is one of the end products that we got from one of my on-level kiddos that just happens to be ESL and SPED. They worked with another kid and they came up with this for their menu, and I thought it was very amazing. And that's using vocabulary words. I'm sorry, let me go back. Okay, so I thought the end product turned out to be very, very nice. We also use a lot of all-in learning for differentiation. All-in learning is provided by our district, so every campus has access to it, and it is an amazing tool to get that give a quick assessment and get the data, and then you can do a reteach or plan your differentiation based on what you see in the data that is sometimes color coordinated. I'm going to show you a few slides of something that I actually did in all-in learning. This was an exit ticket for my students, and the assignment, which you see right here, is highlighted in blue. It's about the Ring of Fire, and they did a short little reading, and then we did some activities, and then I did the exit ticket. It only had 7 questions on it, if you notice. Most of my kids got it. You can see right here with the 91.1% that most of the kids got it, but I was still worried because my earlier classes were struggling with it. My on-level kids were struggling with it. So this right here told me that 9%, almost 9% of my kids probably didn't get it. So what I did is I went into all-in learning, and they have what we call based by my class periods. You see my class periods right here. And then they have a quick data check. That's what I call this, is a quick data check. So I can see in a glance that the main problem was my second period class, that they weren't getting it. I wasn't really worried as much about my fourth period because their 85% as an average is pretty good, but I knew there was a couple of students in there. So once I pulled the actual data on each of the kids in my second period class, I noticed something really crazy, and that was that most of them made like 100s, but then there was these few that are color coordinated that came out in yellow, red, that told me that those kids weren't getting it right away just from that. So I put together a plan for the next day to do some kind of differentiation based on what I see here. I went and I analyzed where they weren't getting it, what questions they weren't getting right. And so if you see in my 6th period, it was questions 1, 2, 3, 4, they struggled a little bit with 5 and 6. And then the rest of the page, it was also 7. And then in my fourth period, I could see in a glance that questions 3 and 4 were not working well with them either. So the next thing I said was I could use All in Learning because they have this tab that's called Action Plan. And it helps me kind of create a plan to go by so that the next day when the kiddos come to school, I can already have my differentiation organized for them and load it into their classroom. So, or we can do activities geared towards what some kids need. I can do stations where one of the stations is me sitting at a table helping those kids that are struggling with whatever they didn't get in that thing. And that's exactly what I did. While the other kids did other stations, one of the stations was to hit me, and then I could work with them where they were low at. There was one defined teak that we used, and this is all from All in Learning. I pulled up my report and noticed there was one defined teak. And this is the action plan I was talking about. The action plan itself you can type on. So you can literally type your own plan and just pull it up whenever you need it to see what you need to do. 80% was the filter that I used because you can set those filters in All in Learning. And it helped me understand where my kids were. This over here is the kiddos that didn't do well on this particular exit ticket. So I noticed that Dylan had 42%, Leslie had 57%, Jocelyn 57. David here really didn't get any of it, so he's 14%, and Christopher was 57%. This is where my differentiation just got real. I can see in a glance, based on All in Learning, what is going on with my kids. I know that David needs a full-blown reteach, but Dylan and the rest of them just probably need help with 1 or 2 questions or 1 or 2 examples or 1 or 2 things that I can help them with inside the classroom by setting up those stations or however we worked it that day. I can also, when I'm doing my action plan, I can leave comments. I can go back and look through Dylan's personal stuff and say, oh, well, comprehension was the issue. So I can write comprehension there. And when I pull that up, if I don't deal with it the next day or if I plan or reteach during tutorials, I still have this information that I can differentiate for these students with. Then with David, I just said it needed to be a reteach. So I knew I need to plan some kind of differentiation. How am I going to teach this lesson differently so that David gets it? What am I going to do? What tools am I going to use? Does he need more videos? Does he need one-on-one? Does he need more hands-on? I had to figure that out. And so as he's working through stations, I can closely monitor him and see, okay, well, he's having a hard time struggling with the content. So let me help him with the content. This tool and All in Learning makes my life so much easier. I use this after every assessment. I use this, I make a lot of exit tickets so that I can use this with an exit ticket. I can do a quick assessment in the middle of class. I can do a beginning unit, an end unit, whatever I need to do to make sure my kiddos are getting it, which gives me that quick data that is so necessary so that I can go back and plan a reteach that's good for my kids. When we're talking about reteach, the best thing that I can do is Google Classroom. Google Classroom makes differentiation very simple. I can choose what kids are getting what and what assignments they do. I can even add a little bit extra. That's the end of this particular PowerPoint, but I'm going to go to my Google Classroom and show you what I'm talking about. I set up a webinar class with my teacher friends. You see, I have students in here. These are all teachers here. These are not actual students. So these are teachers that teach science on this campus, except for this Erica. She teaches ELA, and she happens to be my own personal kid. Yes, she's a teacher at my campus. They all sign up for my classroom. So these are my kids in my classroom. So when I'm creating an assignment through my stream, all I have to do when I click on the assignment, so let's say Erica had taken this test also, and Erica didn't do so well. So when I'm creating assignment and I'm going to call it, I can call it reteach and relearn. And it was over plate boundaries. Excuse me, I can't spell that. and it was over plate boundaries, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go, and I know based on Erica's score, when I'm assigning work for to everybody else, I'm going to give all students. So I'm just going to click on all the students and click Erica off of there because I know she didn't do so well. I'm going to give all the students a worksheet or something. So I'm going to go to my drive and find, let's say they're doing Cornell notes that day. So I'm going to go to my drive and I'm going to give them a Cornell note template that's blank so they can do the Cornell notes, which is this one, and load that up through my drive. But when I'm dealing with Erica, because I realize she's not getting it, I'm going to give her a different assignment. So I'm going to click all the other kiddos off except for Erica. And on Erica's assignment, when I go to load it up through the classroom in Google Drive, I'm going to go to my drive and I'm going to give her a little bit of extra help. I'm going to give her, when it loads, Cornell notes that basically have cues on them. I'll show you them. So her Cornell notes are going to look a little bit different. Miss Swig actually created these, but we create these at the beginning of every unit for our kiddos that are have learning difficulties like ESL or our SPED kiddos or whatever, so that they have the ideas in there and it helps them with the notes. They just know where to put the definitions and stuff. We usually do this all online. So this is what I'm going to assign to Erica in the webinar class. I'm also going to decide, since Discovery Ed is one of our resources, I'm going to go to Discovery Ed, and just for Erica, I'm going to search a video over plate boundaries because I know that's where she's really not doing very well. So once I search and I find a good video over plate boundaries, I can actually click on that, take the link, and place it in the classroom. And that video will go out to only Erica, and she will be able to have that extra help when she's doing the Cornell notes. That's that differentiation product that helps so much through Google Classroom. Another thing that we can do with Google Classroom, when you're choosing an assignment for your kiddos, if I'm going to create an assignment for my kids, I can pull from assignments that I've used in the past. I can also label my assignments reteach. I can also load stations in here, whatever, so that the kiddos can preview the material. In my other classes, we do a reteach when the kiddos aren't getting it on assessments. So whenever I go to create assignment, I may have a reteach an assignment. And so it could be as simple, our last reteach that we did. And I don't have to give this to all the students, a few of the students. I can create a practice test or a new test for them because I realized that they struggled on the original test. So I can create these products for these kids. And then when I go to my drive to load it up, I can actually find my good reteach materials that I used in the past and then assign that reteach material to those kids. And then when they come in to reteach and retest, which we let them do, then they already have the material loaded. They previewed it. All they have to do is take a different test that we've created. Another thing that I like is those kids that need extra time, I can extend their time. Let's say the assignment's due for everybody else on the 24th, but for these 4 students, I'm going to go ahead and give them to the 28th to get something done. Google Classroom is an excellent thing that we use that's available to all the schools and everything. Garland ISD is a Google subscriber, so the kids all know their logins and everything else. And this right here has been one of the most amazing tools that we've used for differentiation. That's pretty much everything I have. So if there's no questions, looking for it. Let me go back to my Hangout and get off the shared screen. If there's nothing else, then that's been my presentation. So I hope you enjoyed it.